Welcome to the Classic Soap Operas podcast. Today we are deep diving into an address that, well, for a few short but incredibly explosive years in the 1970s, pretty much defined Australian culture and shattered global television taboos, the infamous number 96.
It's kind of amazing how little this show is known outside Australia, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the sheer impact it had domestically.
Oh.
We've got this great source document here. It's basically the definitive history, and it really lets us get under the skin of why this fictional apartment block, 96 Lindsay Street, Paddington,
Yeah.
why it was such a revolutionary and, controversial force.
Right. And that's our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To go beyond just saying it was shocking and understand how it worked, why its daring content was both, its superpower, it saved a whole network, but also maybe its biggest problem for selling it overseas.
Exactly. And the context is crucial. You really have to look at the network that commissioned it.
The 010 network, yeah. Now Network 10.
They were struggling big time, staring down the barrel, really. They just didn't have the hit local shows the other bigger networks had. So commissioning number 96 wasn't just a punt.
It was desperation.
It was pretty much a last-ditch effort, yeah. A massive gamble to get viewers, any viewers, tuning in.
And they weren't after gentle family drama. The goal was explicit. Make it racier than Britain's Coronation Street.
Which is funny when you think about it, because Corey was, known for being quite cozy, quite safe back then. Working class life, yes, but hardly scandalous.
So how did number 96 signal it was, well, completely different, right from the get-go?
Oh, the intention was crystal clear. That promotional tagline. We have to stress how shocking this was for 1972.
Tonight, Australian television loses its virginity.
Exactly. Can you imagine? It was completely uncompromising. It basically screamed, we're going to show you things you have never seen on TV before. Sex, social issues, stuff that was just completely off limits everywhere else, especially in primetime.
And wow, did that gamble pay off? You mentioned 010 was struggling.
Hugely. But by 1974, just 2 years after number 96 launched, they were number one. Top of the ratings in Australia for the first time ever.
Just from this one show.
This one show basically floated the whole network. It gave them the cash and the audience base to start buying in big international hits, things like MSH, The Waltons. It literally saved them from going under.
Okay, so let's dig into the nuts and bolts. The history, the production side of things. The creator was David Sale, British novelist. He'd worked on another big Aussie show, The Mavis Bramston Show.
Yeah, and the production company was Cash Harmon Television. But the sheer scale of what they committed to, I mean, the output level, it just seems kind of crazy for that era.
Crazy is the word. 5 nights a week.
5 half-hour episodes, every single weeknight, Monday to Friday, in the 8:30 p.m. primetime slot. That's just unparalleled.
Think about the rivals back then.
Well, yeah, like Peyton Place in the U.S., maybe 3 episodes a week at its peak. Coronation Street, as we said, twice weekly. Number 96 was demanding your attention every single night.
And it ran for 6 years like that. From March 72 to August 77, that's, what, over 1,200 episodes? 12,218, apparently.
12,218, yeah, which tells you they must have had production down to a fine art. They had to be incredibly efficient.
So how did they manage that kind of volume?
Well, efficiency was absolutely key, and this brings up a really interesting sort of technical point that often gets missed. The producer, Don Cash, he was a real innovator.
In what way?
To handle that sheer volume, the scripts, the actors coming and going, the sets, keeping all the storylines straight across 5 episodes a week. He used what our sources say was one of the world's first computers for production management.
A computer in the early 70s. For making a soap opera, we're not talking special effects here, are we?
No, nothing like that. This was pure logistics, data management. Think about tracking continuity, who wore what prop was where did the character leave off a conversation 3 days ago. Before computers, that was just a mountain of paperwork, prone to errors.
Right. So the computer helped organize all that.
Exactly. It centralized the data. Writers, crew, they could instantly check critical details. It basically created a template, like a digital pipeline, for managing this massive output and that system. It got adopted by pretty much every big Australian soap that followed. It was the birth of the Aussie soap production line, in a way.
That's actually fascinating, the tech side behind the sensationalism.
But here's where we hit a really sad note for TV history fans. The lost episodes.
Yeah, it started in black and white, didn't it?
It did. Ran in monochrome until March 1975, when Australia officially switched over to color broadcasting nationwide.
So what happened to the old black and white tapes?
Well, this is the tragic part. Back then, videotape was expensive, really expensive. And once color TV arrived, the networks just didn't see much value in keeping old black and white recordings.
So they taped over them.
Pretty much. Standard network policy was to wipe or junk the master tapes of old shows to reuse the tape stock for new color productions. It was purely an economic decision.
Oh, that's brutal. Erasing cultural history to save a few bucks on tape. How many are gone?
The numbers are staggering. Around 560 of those early black and white episodes are just gone, presumed lost forever. These are the episodes that set everything up. The initial controversies, the character introductions.
Wow. Out of the first, nearly 600 black and white ones?
We only have about 19 surviving copies. 19. It's a massive, massive hole in Australian TV history.
Which makes the bits we do have even more precious, I guess. But even with that gap, we know one thing they perfected right from the start: the cliffhanger.
Oh, they were the absolute masters. Every single episode, 5 nights a week, ended on a hook. Kept you desperate for the next night.
But they took it further, didn't they? The summer break thing.
Yeah, that was their big innovation, the world's first proper summer cliffhanger. See, Australian TV used to shut down production for about 6 weeks over the summer holidays.
Right, like a hiatus.
Exactly. So, to keep the audience totally hooked during that long break, number 96 basically put everyone in mortal danger at the end of the year.
Every character? Simultaneously.
Pretty much. It was brilliantly nuts. They upped the ante each year. Like 1972, you had Joe James in this potentially fatal car crash.
Okay.
1973, Biv gets shot. And the last big summer cliffhanger involved Herb Evans, drunk on a train, getting robbed by some mystery blonde. The whole country would be talking about it for 6 weeks, desperate for the show to come back in January.
Okay, so that's the structure, the production drama. Let's get into the content, the stuff that really made its name. And the setting seems key here, that inner-city Sydney apartment block.
Definitely. Choosing Paddington in the 70s was a stroke of genius, really.
Yeah.
Because it immediately allowed them, almost forced them, to reflect the reality of Australia at that time.
Yeah.
We're talking peak post-war mass immigration.
So it had to be multicultural.
Well, it was still predominantly white, let's be clear.
Yeah.
But compared to British or American shows of the era, it was way more diverse. It reflected that wave of European migration particularly.
And that gave us some of the most beloved original characters, didn't it? Like Aldo Godolphus.
Ugh, Aldo, the bumbling Hungarian Jewish deli owner, played by Johnny Lockwood, who was actually an English comedian. Aldo was initially maybe just comic relief, a bit of a stereotype perhaps.
But he became hugely popular.
He really did. Lockwood gave him this warmth, this sort of clumsy charm that people just loved. He felt very real.
And then you had the contrast with Alf Sutcliffe.
A classic whinging palm, yeah. Played by James Elliott. Apparently, the creator David Sale based Alf on his own father. Always complaining, always wishing he was back in England, created great tension with his wife Lucy, who loved Australia.
So you had that dynamic playing out, embracing the new versus clinging to the old. And there are others too.
Oh, yeah. You had Roman Lubinsky, who was Russian-born, Giovanni Lenzi, the Italian guy working in the deli, Vera Collins, the fashion designer, she was South African. It felt, well, cosmopolitan for its time.
And they didn't just stick to European migrants. They included non-white characters, too.
They did, which was quite pioneering, even if some roles were fairly short-lived. There were African-American characters like Chad Farrell and Hope Jackson.
And significantly for Australian TV.
The Aboriginal hairdresser, Rhonda Jackson, played by Justine Saunders. That was huge. Saunders became the first Aboriginal woman ever on the cover of TV Week magazine for that role. That shows you the kind of cultural footprint number 96 had.
But this commitment to diversity, it actually became a problem when they tried to sell the show internationally, particularly to the U.S.
It absolutely did. It sounds crazy now, but back then, American networks were just not ready for some of the things number 96 took for granted, like interracial romance.
Really?
Yeah, the kiss between Chad Farrell, the African-American character, and Sonia Freeman, who was white. That was apparently a major red flag for U.S. distributors.
Even in the 70s.
Even then.
Yeah.
U.S. TV was starting to touch on social issues, sure, but number 96's casual handling of interracial relationships, plus the explicit sexuality, the nudity, the gay themes, it was all just too embedded in the show's DNA. You couldn't easily cut it out without getting the whole thing. So it basically never got a proper run in the States.
Which is ironic, because that lack of international exposure means its biggest world firsts, the LGBTQ plus milestones, are often overlooked globally.
And this is arguably the show's most important, most enduring legacy.
Yeah.
It was decades ahead.
Decades.
Yeah.
Because before number 96, gay characters on TV were, well, what were they?
Almost always stereotypes. If they existed at all, they were villains, tragic victims, or figures of ridicule. campy jokes.
But then came Don Finlayson.
Don Finlayson, the lawyer, played by Joe Hasham. And crucially, he was a main regular cast member from episode 1 right through to the final episode, 12,218.
For the entire run. And how was he portrayed?
As completely normal, dependable, kind, ethical, intelligent, sympathetic. The sources describe him as straight acting, which maybe helped ease him into conservative homes back then.
A way to make him acceptable.
Possibly. But the key thing was, he had no shame, no angst about being gay. He was comfortable with who he was. He just had relationships with men. And he became this absolute hero to many, genuinely credited with helping the gay liberation movement in Australia.
The first regular, sympathetic, positively portrayed gay character on TV anywhere in the world.
Anywhere. And they didn't stop there. They immediately pushed further. Don's first lover on the show was Bruce Taylor, a photographer.
And he was.
TV's first bisexual character. He was involved with Don, but also with Maggie Cameron, the scheming businesswoman. Talk about complex.
But the network must have been nervous, depicting a gay relationship in 1972.
Terrified. Initially, they famously banned any physical contact between Don and Bruce. No touching, certainly no kissing.
Seriously.
Yeah, shows you the climate they were battling. But here's the thing. The show became so hugely popular, it gave the writers and producers leverage. The network needed number 96. So gradually, the restrictions eased.
So they started showing more.
A little later on, Don had this significant relationship with Dudley Butterfield, Dud, who was described as this hilariously camp bisexual chef. And yes, eventually, Don and Dud were shown touching, hugging, even shown getting into bed together, just normalizing their relationship on screen.
Which paved the way for the really big milestones later on, the stuff that was truly unprecedented.
Exactly. The moments that still feel quite radical today looking back. Towards the end of the show's run, there was a kiss, a passionate kiss between Don and another partner, Rob.
And this was?
The first proper male gay kiss shown in a TV drama, anywhere, world first.
Wow. And they went even further.
They did. In the final months, there was a scene, Don and another character, Joshua. They're shown in bed together, naked, smoking a cigarette afterwards, clearly post-coital.
On primetime TV in the mid-70s.
On primetime TV. Sympathetically handled, not played for shock value in a negative way. It was just part of Don's life. The significance of that cannot be overstated.
It's incredible. And they also tackled lesbian and transgender characters.
They did, though the early lesbian storylines were, well, let's say problematic. The first one, Karen Winters, played by Tony Lamond.
TV's first lesbian character.
Considered to be, yes. But the storyline. She turned out to be a devil worshiper who tried to sacrifice another character in a black mass ritual.
Oh dear, that doesn't sound very positive representation.
Not exactly. And it was heavily censored, too. They clearly sort of panicked and retreated from that angle pretty quickly. Later, there was another character, Marie Crowther, who had a crush on Vera Collins, but that didn't really go anywhere either.
Okay, so maybe less successful there. What about the transgender representation?
That was handled much better, actually. They introduced a character called Robin Ross. And the really significant thing here was the casting.
Who played her?
She was played by Carlotta, who is herself a transgender woman, a well-known performer in Australia. And although Robin had a storyline involving a comedic character, the sources are clear that she wasn't treated as a joke or dehumanized. It was portrayed with a surprising degree of normalcy and respect for the time, especially for a show that elsewhere was pushing shock tactics relentlessly.
Right, so number 96 was this amazing social pioneer in many ways. But let's be honest, its fame, or maybe infamy, comes from its absolute dedication to controversial adult content. It didn't just flirt with taboos, it grabbed them head on.
Oh, completely. They went places no other show would touch. Illegal abortions, you had Dr. Gordon Vansard performing them. Multiple rape storylines involving main characters like Rose, Vera, Bev, which were often quite graphic for the time.
Drug use as well?
Yep. Drug use, pregnancy late in life, the whole devil worship thing with the black mass, which got heavily cut by the censors, unsurprisingly.
And they set this tone from the very first episode, didn't they? It caused immediate trouble.
The premiere was basically designed to cause outrage. You had Mark Eastwood trying it on with his heavily pregnant wife, Helen. She says no. He immediately goes off with Rose Godolphus from downstairs. Helen comes home, finds them in bed together.
And Rose was?
Topless. A major first for Australian TV drama. The Broadcasting Control Board, the censors, they freaked out, immediately ordered cuts to the topless scene, the adultery. Only the censored version of that first episode even exists today.
So the censors, the Broadcasting Control Board, they were constantly battling the show, using this 101 censorship code.
They were trying. But it's fascinating to watch the power dynamic shift over the years. Because the show got so popular, The network had more clout. Take an early drug storyline, Rose Godolphus again. This time, trying marijuana.
Okay.
Because of that 101 code, which basically said if you show bad behavior, you must show negative consequences. The censors insisted Rose had to be shown suffering terribly from smoking weed. The moral lesson had to be hammered home.
Right, punish the character on screen.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with a much later storyline, much more serious. Heroin addiction, involving Debbie Chester, who was only 15.
How did they handle that? Did the censors clamp down even harder?
Amazingly, no.
Nah.
By this stage, the show was so big, and maybe the culture had shifted a bit, the censors seemed almost powerless. In fact, the police got involved.
The police? How?
The New South Wales police actually requested that the show depict how easy it was for kids to get into heroin. So Debbie Chester was shown, on screen, being taught how to inject heroin, needles and all.
Wow. That wasn't censored.
No, it was framed as a public service warning, explicitly designed to scare parents. It's an incredible shift, right? From the censors forcing negative consequences for marijuana to the police requesting explicit depiction of heroin use as a warning shows how much influence Number 96 had gained.
Beyond the social issues, they were masters of the sensational crime plot, too. Those became national talking points, didn't they? The names are pretty lurid.
Oh, completely over the top, but they worked. Everyone was talking about the knicker snipper, the panty snatcher, and there was the hooded rapist in 76. And maybe the most famous, the pantyhose strangler.
That one was brutal, apparently.
Yeah, because they killed off Patty Olsenfeather, who's a really well-liked character, as the second victim. It was a genuine shock, and the whodunit mystery kept people glued to their sets for weeks.
But this constant need for bigger shocks, more crime, more sex, was that sustainable? Or did it start to feel desperate, especially when ratings began to dip?
That's exactly what happened. Mid-70s, those glossy American shows started coming, The $6 Million Man, that kind of thing. And Aussie audiences started drifting away a bit.
Number 96 doubled down on the shock.
They did. It became less about groundbreaking social commentary and more about just extreme situations. More violence, more explicit sex. And this shift caused real tension behind the scenes.
Oh, so?
Well, the original creator, David Sale, he actually quit near the end. So did the casting director. They both felt the show had just gone too far. Spun wildly out of control was the phrase used.
If the creator thought it was out of control, that says a lot. And this desperation led to some pretty infamous moments, like the character Miss Hemingway.
Ah, Miss Hemingway.
Yes.
Introduced as a psychiatric patient who was delusional, and crucially for the ratings chase, she didn't like wearing clothes.
Leading to?
Full frontal female nudity, screened on free-to-air TV at 8:30 in the evening.
8:30. Prime time,
Yeah.
not late night. That's incredibly bold for the 70s.
It was pure provocation, a desperate attempt to stop the ratings slide. And you know the most amazing thing?
What?
The official reaction. All that primetime nudity, it generated exactly 3 viewer complaints. 3.
Seriously, that's it?
That's it, which tells you something, doesn't it? Either the audience was completely desensitized by then, or maybe liberated? Yeah, hard to say.
They just kept pushing right to the end, though. Didn't they have another nudity first?
They did. The first instance of full frontal male nudity in a TV drama.
How did that happen?
It was during a storyline where Jane Chester had become a prostitute. She was hired to whip a client, Toby Buxton, and there was apparently a brief glimpse of him fully nude.
Wow. And they even claimed a first for language, too.
Yeah, the first use of a 4-letter word, apparently. The character Grant Chandler asked if anyone found the word shit offensive on air.
So these later years, it sounds like the show was maybe losing its original purpose, trading social commentary for pure shock.
Arguably, yes. It felt like a shift. The realism that grounded the early controversies started to get lost in these increasingly broad, sometimes violent, often just plain weird storylines. It was chasing ratings, maybe at the cost of its soul. But even with that later chaos, you can't deny what a cultural force Number 96 was at its peak. And nothing shows the scale of its ambition, and maybe desperation, like the bomb blast stunt.
Ah, yes, the bombing. This was 1975, right? Ratings were definitely shaky by then.
They were. The network knew they needed something massive, a game changer, so they made this incredibly bold decision. They threw out 40 completed scripts.
40 scripts? That's like 8 weeks of television.
Gone. Binned. They completely rewrote the narrative around a huge bombing storyline. Total secrecy during production. Built up this mystery about who planted the bombs, leading to this massive explosion on a Friday night episode in September 75.
And the explosion itself, it wasn't just TV magic.
Oh, no. They used real gelignite, to blow up the sets for the delicatessen and the wine bar next door. Apparently, the blast was so strong it actually blew the studio doors off their hinges.
Good grief. That's taking realism a bit far, isn't it?
Well, it certainly got attention. And the impact on the show's world was devastating. Permanent. 4 main characters were killed off.
Killed off major ones.
Absolutely. They'd sacrificed fan favorites to maximize the shock and allow for a cast refresh. Liz Whitaker, who'd been there a while, and Aldo Godolphus, the beloved deli owner, and his wife Roma, all gone.
That must have been huge news.
Front page news. The papers on Monday morning were all about who died in the number 96 bomb blast. It was later revealed the bomber was Maggie Cameron, the schemer, wanting to clear the building to sell it.
Did the stunt work? Did it save the ratings long term?
It gave him a big boost, definitely. But it was temporary. It did allow them to write out some other original characters soon after, like Alf and Lucy Sutcliffe, and bring in new blood. But yeah, the desperation started to show again.
Like bringing in plots that felt less grounded.
Exactly. You got storylines like the Chester sisters, Debbie and Jane. They became orphans because their parents were suddenly killed by a shark.
Oh.
Which everyone saw as just, a blatant attempt to cash in on the Jaws movie craze.
Right. Movie plots crashing into the apartment block realism.
It got a bit messy. But even so, the show's cultural grip on Australia was just undeniable for years. The New York Times even noted that at its height, it was the highest-rated show of its kind anywhere in the world.
Wow. And people were seriously invested.
Beyond invested. The critic Philip Adams famously said he thought viewers were more involved in the lives of the number 96 characters than in their own communities. Another commentator, John Singleton, compared it to today's Shakespeare. High praise indeed.
And nothing illustrates that better than the story of the Spirit of 96 train. We should explain the Logies first.
Right. So the Logie Awards, they're Australia's main TV awards, like the Emmys in the U.S. Winning a Logie is the big one.
And number 96 cleaned up.
Absolutely dominated. Won Best Drama 3 years in a row, 74, 75, 76. Pat McDonald, who played Dory Evans, the gossip, known for getting her words wrong.
Dory Evans. Iconic.
She won 4 Logies herself. Bunny Brooke, who played Flo Patterson, won Best Actress. It wasn't just popular, it was critically acclaimed too, within Australia at least.
So, the cast traveling to Melbourne for the awards, this became a huge event, the Spirit of 96.
Oh, it was pure genius publicity. They chartered this special overnight train, silver carriages, the works, called it the Spirit of 96. They had a massive send-off party in Sydney, red carpet, jazz band, the whole 9 yards.
But the journey itself was the amazing part.
Unbelievable. The train made stops along the way, sometimes just at tiny country stations in the middle of nowhere, and thousands of people turned out just to see the cast, wave at them.
Thousands? For a train stopping?
Yeah. Reports said the crowds that met the train when it finally arrived in Melbourne were bigger than the crowds that greeted the Beatles on their only Australian tour in 1964.
Bigger than the Beatles? That's insane.
That's the level of phenomenon we're talking about. Fictional characters drawing bigger crowds than the biggest band in the world. It's wild.
And the show spawned loads of merchandise too, didn't it?
Oh yeah, confirming that cult status. Tie-in novels often written under a pseudonym, Marina Campbell. There was a soundtrack album, like a disco LP, even a number 96 cookbook put out by a magazine. People wanted everything connected to the show.
And then there was the movie, number 96, the movie, 1974. Big deal because it was in color.
Huge deal. The TV show was still in black and white then, remember, so seeing it on the big screen in color was a massive draw.
And they didn't tone it down for the cinema audience.
Quite the opposite. The film opens, even before the credits, with Vera Collins being brutally gang-raped by a motorbike gang.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. David Sale, the creator, apparently joked about it later, saying, "I wanted people to know they were in the right cinema." Intense stuff.
But it worked financially.
Phenomenally. Made on a shoestring budget, about $800,000, it grossed nearly $2.8 million. Made it one of the biggest Aussie films of the entire 70s.
And audiences loved it.
But fans adored it. Critics who weren't familiar with the show wrote about being amazed that every time a main character appeared on screen for the first time in the movie, the audience would burst into spontaneous applause.
Just applause for seeing them. That shows the connection.
Deep personal loyalty, built up over years of watching them every single night.
Yeah.
But despite the movie's success, despite the bomb blast, despite everything, the magic couldn't last forever. The ratings decline continued.
And eventually,
the network had to pull the plug. It was canceled in April 1977. The audience had just moved on. Ironically, often to those big American shows that number 96 had helped the network afford in the first place.
how many of the original cast were left at the very end?
Only 3. Pat McDonald as Dory, Ron Shand as Herb, and thankfully Joe Hashem as Don Finlayson. He saw it through right to the end.
And the final episode, how did it finish?
Apparently it ended with this rather touching curtain call sequence, bringing back lots of popular cast members from throughout the show's run, past and present, for a final bow, acknowledging the incredible journey.
So for people listening now, totally intrigued by this crazy show,
Yeah.
can they actually watch it today? What about all those lost episodes?
Well, for years, it was really hard to see much of it, which just compounded the tragedy of the missing black and white ones. But there's fantastic news recently.
Oh, yeah.
Umbrella Entertainment, through their streaming service, Brawley, announced the series is finally coming to streaming, scheduled for May 2025.
And that includes?
All the surviving color episodes, plus those precious few surviving black and white ones. It's a huge moment for Australian TV history fans.
But how do they handle that massive gap? You know, between the early B&W survivors and the start of the color run, that's hundreds of missing episodes.
They've thought about that. They're including a special bridging episode. It's hosted by Andrew Mercado, who's a well-known Australian TV historian.
And what does that do?
It basically summarizes everything that happened in those missing years. All the major plots, the character arcs, the big controversies, everything you need to know to understand how the story got from, say, episode 35 to where the color episodes pick up. It's like a viewer's guide to the lost years. Essential viewing, really, if you want the full picture.
That sounds like a great solution. What a story. From this desperate gamble by a failing network
to a global pioneer that smashed social boundaries. Often burning its bridges for international sales in the process, but keeping Australia utterly hooked.
It's got layers, hasn't it? On one level, it's the ultimate example of using shock tactics, the murders, the nudity, the bombs, just to grab ratings and save a network. Pure sensationalism as a business strategy.
Absolutely. A masterclass in how to use controversy to build a massive domestic audience.
But then, underneath all that noise, the sex, the violence, maybe the most important thing is quieter. That social representation.
I really think it is. You strip away the shock value and what endures, what feels truly radical, even now. It's the quiet courage of keeping Don Finlayson, that sympathetic, non-stereotypical gay man, at the heart of that community for 6 years.
Right from the start right to the end?
Exactly. That commitment, decades before the U.S. or the U.K. would dare do anything similar in prime time, that, for me, is the enduring legacy that makes Number 96 genuinely important, globally significant television. It wasn't just notorious. It was, in its own chaotic way, profoundly brave.
If you learned something surprising about the golden age of soap operas today, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you get your deep dives. We want to know, what other classic soap opera do you think deserves this kind of deep dive? Let us know your ideas for our next episode.